a bit of drama happened in Minnesota recently as someone decided to assassinate a Minnesota state representative and her husband and attempt to assassinate another one and his wife, although they both survived. And this has been described by Governor Tim Walz as politically motivated, politically targeted violence. And the suspected gunman is a 57-year-old man called Vance Luther Bolter, which is remarkable. So we have very strange occurrence and a very strange profile of the would-be assassin, and there are many questions surrounding this. So as you can see, this is Melissa Hortman and her husband that were killed, and State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were wounded. And I honestly don't really know why. So, no one else does either, it seems. As the New York Times or Washington Post.
So we don't know for sure the motivation of the shooter.
Not really, no. And weirdly, we have a manifesto, but we're not allowed to see it.
When they said it was politically motivated, sorry, fill me in, left or right, what are we even talking here?
Well, this is the question. It's not readily apparent, right? So, Ms. Hortman, just for the background on who the lawmakers were who were shot, she was a lawyer and a legislator for about 20 years. She'd been the Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives from 2019 to 2025. She was a Democrat and represented a reliably Democrat district. She played a key role in passing a trove of bills during the 2023 session when they held a slim majority in the legislature, including expanding abortion rights, legalizing recreational marijuana, and requiring employers to offer paid family and medical leave. Under her leadership, the Democrats in the House boycotted the early weeks of the legislative session amid a fight for control of the chamber. So there's been a bit of a back and forth on this. Voters had left the Democrats and Republicans with an equal number of seats in the House, but the challenges of two of the elections won by Democrats created a period of uncertainty around which party would control the chamber. And one thing that colleagues have repeatedly praised her for, her negotiation skills and pragmatism. So while she is a Democrat, she is prepared to work with Republicans and get things done across the aisle. Now, candidates for assassination, you would think, would usually be those people who are sort of intransigent, perhaps, much more hardline on things, rather than people who are much more collegial about these things.
Well, that is certainly interesting, because the first thing, once you said she's a Democrat, sure, I was like, oh, well, okay then, so it would be some sort of more right-leaning person that wanted to murder her. But when you said, oh no, she's reached across the aisle type person, well, yeah, it could easily be a far leftist wanting to murder her from the left.
But also, the assassin being a 57-year-old man is a weird thing. We'll get into it in a minute.
So usually young men assassins, aren't they?
Yeah.
Nearly always.
Yeah, exactly.
Not always, but nearly.
Almost always.
Yeah.
And so the second chap, Mr. Hoffman, chaired the Senate's Human Services Committee. He was a fourth-term senator, again, in a reliable Democrat area. And he says, quote, "The hallmark of my approach is collaboration across the aisle." He wrote in a letter to his constituents last year, "I firmly believe the path to progress in our state involves considering input from all perspectives, regardless of which party holds the majority." Why would you shoot these guys?
That's interesting, because that's a kind of
collaborate.
A rarity element that's within politics in America at the moment are senators from the left who are willing to work with those on the right, is that because they still see that as a divide in America, left, right. I know that we don't do it over there and we don't see it anymore because it doesn't exist here anymore. But over there, they do see that very clearly. And on a state level's not really quite seen as so volcanic as that in the national level of when I first looked at this, I thought when the representative, it said a Minnesota representative and a husband, I thought, oh, we've got someone in Congress here. We've got someone in the Senate. But then you're going down, that's like your local councillor.
It's a bit more powerful than that.
Yeah, I know, I appreciate it, but the concept,
it's definitely not the winner-take-all that the presidency seems to be.
It's a state level, not the federal level.
Yeah.
But when you ask the question, why would you? Yeah. Maybe it is exactly that from the left, you see them as a collaborator.
Well, it doesn't look like the guy was a leftist. That's the thing.
We know about it.
Well, we'll get into it. So Hoffman, on his campaign website, said that he was particularly proud of his efforts to make it easier for people with disabilities to get to work, and described himself as, quote, a conscientious steward of taxpayer dollars. Sorry, why are you killing these guys? or attempting to kill that guy. They seem fairly reasonable. And interestingly, it seems that they both voted against allowing illegal immigrants from getting free healthcare from the taxpayer.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, and they both walked across the aisle to join the Republicans on this one, but very reasonable and sensible, you would think, right? And Hortman herself gave an interview shortly afterwards, and, I mean, listen to the tone.
I know that people will be hurt by that vote, and we worked very hard to try to get a budget deal that wouldn't include that provision.
She sounds breaking down.
Yeah.
Just explaining that, which makes it sound like, I don't know, someone threatened her or something.
Well, there's something concerning there. I mean, obviously, people get emotional about votes, and it's tiring when you're trying to negotiate, particularly as you said, she's
but that
crossing the aisle, working with people. That's going to be emotionally and intellectually difficult. But
that sounded something else.
That sounds something's much harder. Has she been threatened?
I have no idea, and that's the thing. This is all pretty up in the air at the moment. So this is the doorbell camera footage of the assassin.
Oh my gosh.
As you can see, he's dressed like a police officer. He had a police car, or at least a car that looked like a police car, that had flashing lights on it, and he was wearing some sort of latex rubber mask.
Bit nightmare fuel territory.
Yeah, it's kind of like the perk.
That is weird.
Right?
That is frightening.
So he knocked on their door, and they answered it and shot them and their spouses. In his car, he apparently had a stack of the No Kings flyers, which is really weird. Sorry, this is him saying that he had the police vehicle. And apparently he had a stack of these flyers in his car that had No Kings written on it. It's like, okay. So we have a 57-year-old man who somehow has access to a police car, even though he isn't a policeman. Although I'll explain maybe how he got this in a minute. And in this had these No Kings flyers, which, I mean, forgive me for saying so, but this kind of looks like a plant, right? Like this is not. He just happens to have all of these No Kings anti-government leftist nonsense in his car, right?
Unless he is an abstract radical leftist.
Maybe, but we've got some more information about him. Anyway, he was arrested. He was actually taken into custody.
No emotion. Look at those eyes. Look at that face. I don't care, he's saying.
Yeah. This is not something that particularly bothers him, right?
No.
So what do we know about him? And this is very weird. So he was originally appointed to a board of business development board for the state of Minnesota by 2016 by Mark Dayton, a Democrat who was then the governor. And more recently, he was appointed to the same board by Tim Walz, who is also, of course, a Democrat. The board has 41 members. It's not just Democrats on the board, it's Democrats and Republicans. And its goal is to just improve business development in the state. In 2016, he was listed as having none or other as his political affiliation. And in 2020, he was listed as having, quote, no party preference. They don't have to declare their political affiliation, but he declared his as none, right? He did, know of these people. We've got some evidence that knew, because in 2022, Bolter, the assassin, and Hoffman were in a virtual meeting together for a discussion about how the job market is supposed to be growing in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic. So he obviously knew the senators and was obviously involved with them in some way.
On a practical basis, if Tim Walz and the previous governor, who is also a Democrat, appointed him, they're not going to appoint someone and continue to appoint them unless they feel that that individual is working on their side. Well, I know they say they try to have independence.
Yeah, I'll explain a bit more. So,
I would have thought he'd had motivations or leanings towards them at least.
Well, it's hard to say, because he was appointed to a business development board because he was a businessman.
Oh, okay.
He was the general manager of a 7-Eleven in Minneapolis. He had worked as the general manager of a gas station in St. Paul. In 2017, he'd been an executive at an energy company. More recently, on his LinkedIn, he had been the executive of a company called Red Lion Group that worked in the Democratic Republic of Congo, dedicated to creating good jobs for local people, according to its website. That's a bit of a stretch from being a general manager in a 7-Eleven
to
guy in the Republic of Congo.
NGO USAID funded organisation.
Maybe.
That is odd.
Yeah.
Very, very weird, right? He'd apparently delivered several sermons at a church in the Democratic Republic of Congo in videos that have been posted online where he appears to criticize gay and transgender people. In one, he said, quote, "There's people, especially in America, they don't know what sex they are, they don't know the sexual orientation, they're confused, the enemy has gotten far into their mind and their soul." Weird.
Okay.
That's not what a leftist.
No.
That's
So why the No Kings?
Yeah.
and loads of other things. The more you're describing this, because this is pretty much all new to me,
Right,
Yeah.
it doesn't add up.
right.
There's things that are explicitly anti-left about him and things that are explicitly leftist about him.
Yeah, but also he's apparently some sort of businessman. But what?
Where's the
how do-
business?
Well, I mean, he was a manager of a gas station and a 7-Eleven, but how did then...
How is
you
that? That's a manager. That's not.
Well, sure. But, like, you know, he's someone who's involved in business. But then how do you go to running some Red Lion group in the Congo from that, right? But it goes on. So he's had a long-time friend called David Carlson, who lives at the same address in Minneapolis, where the police executed a search warrant for Bolter. And he claims to have been one of his best friends since 4th grade. And he said that Bolter rented a room from him, and he paid something like 4 months in advance rent for some reason for this room. Apparently, Bolter had also worked in a funeral home. He owned guns and had voted for President Trump last year, his alleged friend says. Like, right, okay, why is it the No Kings thing then?
Yeah.
He's a Trump voter.
Yeah.
Why has he got this No Kings, we're against Trump for being a monarch?
Yeah.
Thing. What's going on here, right? Carlson had apparently received a text message he had received from Bolter early on Saturday morning in which he wrote that he might be dead soon. So clearly this was premeditated. And of course you can't have all the latex gear in the police officer's car and stuff like this if you haven't premeditated this in some way. So the message did not describe any of the details of the attacks, though. And so Carlson says that Bolter is a Christian who strongly opposed abortion. Fair enough, that seems like it might add up. He had never mentioned either of the lawmakers who were shot and had generally avoided talking about politics. Apparently he'd been experiencing financial and mental health challenges. So, right.
Okay.
Another interesting thing is that Bolter and his wife run a private security company in Minnesota called Praetorian Guard Security Services, which is presumably where he got the police car. But there he is, Dr. Vance Bolter, who's involved with security situations in Eastern Europe, Africa, North America, and the Middle East. Right, including the West Bank, Southern Lebanon, and the Gaza Strip.
That's not the behaviour of a rightist, really, is it?
Well, yeah, but how did he end up managing a 7-Eleven?
Oh, yeah.
What is going on?
So 7-Eleven, just like a gas station.
Yeah.
And then he's gone off to, being a church in Africa, funding an organisation out there. He's sitting on a board belonging to the government, that's about business, when he's got no palpable business apart from this. This is the first time we're seeing a business. And this business, he's indicating
Private security.
Private security all across different parts of the world.
Yeah. How did he get these sorts of connections, right?
And then throw the No Kings on top of that.
Yeah.
Complete curveball.
Yeah.
Throw the No Kings on top of this.
The more data points you're giving me, the more I'm thinking, he is just an anti-democrat, rightist type person. But then, they say there are data points that suggest the opposite of that.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm starting to think that actually he's probably a fad. Sorry, I mean, look at this. He brings great security aspect forged by both many ground experiences combined with training both private military firms and people in the US military. He's worked for the largest US oil refinery company, the world's largest food company, and the world's largest convenience-based retailer. I mean...
Are they on his LinkedIn?
It's on his website.
So this is what I mean. His LinkedIn doesn't seem. Did it seem to say that I've worked for the largest oil company, worked for the largest food company? In what capacity?
I worked as a security guard on the Gaza Strip. What is going on here? Right.
This now sounds to indicate someone with military background. Control lots of people from military backgrounds who've gone out to these areas have ended up doing security companies.
Yeah.
So why the background issue?
No idea. But it turns out his wife also worked for Walls.
Okay.
Which is a bit weird. She, that's weird. She worked for him in Washington, D.C. in the early 2010s when he was a congressman. Okay. what is going on here?
2010, 15 years ago, for working
Sure,
for
sure.
Waltz as a congressman.
You know, it's a small
50s.
again thing. There's nothing to it necessarily, but this is a bit weird, right? Anyway, so the guy had a manifesto, and as you can see, it was, quote, mainly comprised of names. Okay, but what was the other bit that it was comprised of? There were lots of Democrats listed in the manifesto. For some reason, it's not going to be released. Don't know why. Why is it not going to be released? I would like to know what was in the manifesto. Thank you very much. Because I think there might be some pertinent information in there. Which, I mean, normally when it's a right-wing manifesto, there's like, here you go, he was a Nazi.
Well, if it was a right-wing manifesto, they would have had that out straight away, just to discredit the right.
I would have thought so.
I mean, when they did that with Anders in Norway with his manifesto, that they couldn't get that out quick enough to turn out and paint him as a radical right-wing fascist ready to kill anybody for his views.
But why
more left-wing?
If you're a 57-year-old man with so much invested in, like, you know, business and government, and you are working hand in glove with all of these things, why then go and assassinate two moderates?
State senators as well.
Moderate state senators, or try to assassinate one of them. He survived. Who and their wives, who are working across the aisle to, and the latest thing seems to have been to make sure that illegal immigrants don't get free healthcare. Like, this doesn't add up at all.
No.
There is definitely something about this that is simply not being explained.
Yeah, and maybe the whole situation glows.
Well, that's what a drunk changeling says, well, this glow's brighter than Chernobyl. It's like, well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, I don't know what, like, Praetorian Guard services, I mean, what a terrible name for a protection, for a security service, right? Like, the Praetorian Guard.
We'll end up killing the people we're supposed to be protecting, like the Praetorian Guard.
Yeah, we'll extort them until they... or we'll kill them and
if they
replace
don't pay, we kill them.
Yeah.
Well, the Praetorian Guards like kings, so why no kings?
Well, yeah, like...
They were protecting kings.
Well, one thing
Well, no, it's worse.
The Caesars, I know.
The Praetorian Guards were terrible.
Yeah.
And they were just basically a gang that held the emperors hostage.
One thing I would say, just as something to say rather than any actual real evidence or anything, is that the intelligence services, what they often do with something like this, if they are involved in it, what they then do is just try and layer as many layers of obfuscation and...
Well, that's what I think the No Kings thing is.
Yeah.
You know,
just to make the story as complex as possible.
Yeah.
So everyone, you have to end up saying, oh, well, it's just weird and we don't know actually what happened or why.
He just happens to have a bunch of No Kings things in his... I mean, yeah, they're just in his boot for some reason. Like, and the fact that he'd got... Why cover yourself up? Why cover your face if you're not really going to make a big deal about trying to get away? None of this makes any sense, right? So anyway, like I said, I don't know what this is all about. Frankly, it glows, but why target these two people? You know, I mean...
He seemed quite innocent about it, but she was petrified. It's like she's already been informed of something.
Yeah.
You know,
So
she's been told about something.
yeah,
Maybe it is to send messages to other Democrats, like, don't cross the aisle,
maybe,
because this is what will happen to you if you do.
but maybe it's something to do with, like, pharmaceutical companies. Like, hang on a second, that's money we're not going to get from giving, you know, medical aid to illegals or something. I don't know. You know, who knows? But like, there's clearly something in the background here that's gone.
But as a story for a big investigative journalist to get involved in
Yeah.
America who understands this and gets behind it, because there needs to be more about in-depth of these individuals. One of the things I do often find about the States, so when you get these characters like the people who attempted to assassinate Trump, we don't really know a great deal about their real background, and it disappears. We see the name, the interest goes, but we never get to see a full documentary story about these individuals, where they are, what the background. We don't hear the families who have talked about them, where they grew up in school, anything like that. And then, of course, we all get the plants. We've seen the movies where they plant individuals to give... What about this friend? Do we actually know he was a friend?
No, we don't. That's why I called him allegedly, because I mean, the New York Times just says, well, his friend from grade 4. But we only have his friend's word that he is his friend. And he is like, okay, but this guy was appointed by Tim Walz and another Democrat, and yet suddenly he, but in fact he's actually like a Trump supporter who's very much against abortion and stuff like that. It's like, really? I mean, but who didn't talk about politics apparently? It's like, okay, like,
and his wife works for Tim
Walz, and yeah,
2010, when she would have been early to mid 30s, looking at their age group, which meant that she must have picked that up at least being political in her 20s at university to get into there, because you just don't walk in to working for a congressman unless either you're part of the party apparatchik and you've grown there through early campaigning, or you've been funded by mum and dad who's given a big donation into the congressman or senator to get you to work.
He manages a petrol station, and then he's in Central Africa and also doing security elsewhere.
Which part of Central? Was it Congo?
Congo, yeah.
Well, that's military kind of intelligence out there.
Sort of types,
there was warfare's thing in Congo.
Was he doing that, like after being a manager of a 7-Eleven? Like, what are you talking about?
It's definitely weird to be involved in private military contracting and managing a 7-Eleven. Just those two things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Yeah.
One of those or both of those are not true, surely. How can they both be true?
Was he being a priest in the Congo, a cover where he talks about gay marriage whilst he went out and tried to shoot the Russians who were there at the same time?
No idea. But anyway, so unfortunately, unsatisfactory as it is, I have no idea. I just want to lay out just the strange contradictions and weird data points of this, because it is absolutely not at all self-evident as to what's happened here. If the mechanical world is just that mechanical, how does it become transcendent? Galileo, Boyle, Newton, and many others saw themselves as recovering this lost wisdom. Technology had sufficiently progressed to reveal that mankind and the Earth he inhabited was not actually the center of the universe. It threatened to upend their entire body of cosmological knowledge. The process of distinguishing science from superstition had begun, and the great minds of the era dedicated themselves to this work.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.